Welcome back. Welcome back to the Long and Thick podcast, where we help you navigate the noise and cut through the bullshit in the health and wellness space. Today, we are joined by none other Mr. Brandon Lee, a military veteran, man with a large tenure in law enforcement, and the owner of Corvus Strategic Solutions. My dude, how are you doing today?
Good, man. How are you?
Fantastic. Cutting right into it, man. Give me who you are and the arc of your life up to this point. Give us a little bit of background.
Well, I was born and raised in Fayetteville, North Carolina. I joined the military in 2007. I served for 8 years. Immediately upon getting out of the military, I found myself back home in Fayetteville. Less than 30 days, I was in the law enforcement academy because it's what I knew. It's what I grew up in.
Mm-hmm.
Started that career in 2015. From there, working as patrol on a sheriff's department, and then ultimately moving into things with Department of Homeland for a contract with my explosives K9, which ultimately led to me moving here to Tennessee, where I now live in Nashville. Got here in 2020. 2021, I had an idea one night, went a rabbit hole, and started a private contract security company called Corvus Strategic Solutions Group. We also go as Corvus Protection Group. So we have two names in one umbrella. From there, I started employing contractors for private security, executive protection, events, off-duty law enforcement, K9, you name it, we do it. That's where I met my two business partners. So I am now one of the three owners of Corvus Strategic Solutions Group.
Dope.
Sweet. What was the heart for the move to Nashville? Like, what was the segue into, ending up in Nashville?
I had family here. I was living in Washington State at the time. I was actually working in Portland, Oregon when COVID hit, shut everything down. So about way through 2020 is kind of when things just kind of went stagnant. Contracts started ending. It got to where we couldn't come to work because of the riots, because of the crowds, the shutdowns. So ultimately I packed my bags and moved to Tennessee.
Right on.
Sick.
Hell
well,
yeah.
Brain, did you have another question, Ronnie?
Nope, just a little hell yeah in there.
Hell yeah. So yeah, I mean, main thing for me why I was excited to have you on the podcast is, one, your immense amount of experience in your service dossier, so to speak, but we know each other through a fitness background, and we've talked at great length too about how you have a pretty interesting Venn diagram on your service career, fitness, and the mentality side. So starting with the service and fitness side, was fitness a fixture from an earlier age for you, or did your start in the military kind of light the fire for strength and fitness?
Mine started after high school. So shortly after graduating high school, before I even went to the military, I worked as a full-time firefighter in North Carolina. So there is where day in, day out operations of the station. There's always time for the gym. That was kind of where I first got introduced to the gym. A lot of the guys that I worked with were real big, beefy guys. They used to take the gym. Fitness was a part of the job, especially with the equipment that you wear, the kind of situations you find yourself in. It is a physically demanding job. When the time arises for a call, a need for service. So that's kind of where I found myself getting into the fitness industry, was into that 1-2 hours a day that we would go and hit the gym over at the city building. A lot of guys kind of introduced me to that and saying, hey, you're at the gym. Never lifted a weight day in my life. I always played sports, football, baseball, basketball. The school I grew up in wasn't really big on, a true gym fitness style. It was more sports athletics. So when I first started picking up weights, lifting weights is when I started getting into it. And then obviously that carries over into the military side, where you meet so many different types of people that you encounter every day. I mean, these people are family. You're with them every single day. So you form bonds, and, you have that early morning PT or that or early morning gym time in the afternoon. When you're off duty, you hit the gym.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When you were kind of going through the various stages of where you were serving, did you find that your approach or what you resonated with on a fitness level changed depending on those roles?
Yes. Being in a combat role and a special operations role, you find that even that side is more physically demanding. You have to have the endurance, the agility, by certain movements, certain training exercises. You got to be able to uphold and be that strong link in the team so the team can fail.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Right on.
The carryover for you from your like natural athletic background to more of like the traditional training side, do you feel like you connected with it right away because you saw excuse me, how many links there were to your day in and day out demands and how beneficial it was? Or was there parts of it that you were sort of like, this sort of sucks, like it's hard to be stoked about going to the gym?
Oh yeah. I mean, we all have those days where you're, super stoked about going to the gym and you kind of just push it off, or you just don't have the mental or physical capacity to do so. It took a while to just kind of really get into it the way that I was getting into it, by learning from, somebody teaching you wrong to somebody teaching you right when it comes to form, when it comes to how to activate different muscle groups. Because, you get all these guys that just want to go in and just, be able to lift a house where, you're not functional then, you don't have the mobility that's required. And the bigger you are, ounces equal pounds. When you start stacking gear on top of that, you start stacking ammo and firearms and sacks and stuff, now you're just basically a brick house moving another brick house.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been really fortunate to have worked with a good chunk of, different servicemen and women in a lot of different capacities. And typically when I come across them, they're injured, but I think, just in some of the behind the scenes that I've been able to get a glance at is you don't want to like report your injury, like in a fire academy or police academy, if you get hurt training or trying to, get ready for a test or something like that, or out on the job. And I feel like there's a lot of room for people to connect with, how much they can bolster themselves with the demands that they're going to face. Like you said, where you're stacked up with tons of stuff, like that weird little step in a ditch is a totally different ballpark now because you have all this other shit on you. It's not the same as, just rucking or whatever. Like this is a new level. So it's been really interesting to learn more about that and really like consider it.
And like you were saying, it's, the injury side, you don't want to report an injury because one, you don't want to step into that realm of feeling like failure. You be able to push through, and it goes the same into military. Any injury that you have, first thing is like, hey, I want to go to sick call. Now everybody's calling you a sick call ranger because, just, drink some water, take some ibuprofen, rub some dirt in it and carry on, and for the most part, that's what we did, unless it was a very serious injury where they were like, hey, you need to go now. But anything else, hey, wrap it, tape it, drive on. And then, of course, those injuries carry on throughout the extent of your lifetime. And sometimes go away. They can be dormant for a little while. And then, years down the road, they come back and you're like, oh, I remember what caused this.
Yeah, that's there. We'll call back to that in a little bit, but that's a big connection.
Now, you took fitness with you through fire and then into the military. Can you kind of tell us some odds and ends on how fitness shaped your mind and resolve both during and after your service in the military?
One, it gave me a sense of purpose with being strong, having that movement and that agility to me. Being able to be functional, knowing that I can handle myself in a situation if I find myself in a bad spot, whether it's through the fire academy, the police academy, through military, through anything. You kind of use it also. And Daniel, you and I kind of talked about this a little bit, and I know we'll get into it, but we kind of talked about it's almost like a Band-Aid. You use that as a outlet for stress relief. You have frustrations, go pick some weights up, throw them around, get that frustration out. It's going to drive that workout a little bit harder.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's also going to wear and tear on the body. So, it kind of depends on the person as well. None of us are getting any younger. So, it's one of those things that, yes, you can use it to build a strong mentality. Yes, you can use it to build a strong mental state of mind. But you can also use those things to damage physically, mentally, and emotionally as well.
No, that's a really good call out, because it's often branded or billed as the cure all, the catch all of all things. But if you are bringing trauma or just bad habits mentally, physically, emotionally, otherwise into it, it can also exacerbate those things. That's not a one-way street. And I know we'll get into that a little bit more, but Ronnie, anything on that?
No, I just I feel like there's a lot that we can unpack around what you were talking about with some of the mindset that exists very naturally and purposefully within the rub dirt on it, get the fuck on with it. Like someone else is relying on you, especially in a situation where you're in an intense moment, right? And it could potentially be life or death. That's not the time to be like, oh, sorry, I'm going to go to the car. I sprained my ankle. But the aftermath and what you had said really has sort of just been bouncing around in my head, like the feeling like a failure and the masculine side of just like being able to push through anything, regardless of how severe or not it may seem. I'm really curious about how you have navigated some of those things during your different tenures, as well as like what that looks like now, and how you sort of balance the mental, emotional side of, oh, something's a little funky. I'm not a piece of garbage because of that.
Yeah. And, I've learned throughout the years that, going through and doing so many different things and so many different fitness levels that, you brought up like the whole masculine mindset, as men, you get an injury and the last thing you want is somebody, you can't do what you need to do. First thing someone says, oh, you're a fucking quitter. You're a fucking pussy. You can't do this.
Mm-hmm.
When it's like, cool, that's what you think. However, I am human. I am prone to injury, and I know if I push myself further, then I'm going to become an invaluable asset.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned to kind of just shrug those off, like it's someone else's opinion. Does it eat away at your mindset later? Yeah, because you think, well, maybe it didn't hurt that bad. Maybe I could have kept going, but no, I fucking gave up. However, I look at the long run of things of, okay, if I get this fixed now, if I do this now and I do this the right way, then I can get back to where I once was. It's not like I'm just going to completely lose it. It's just a temporary barricade or a temporary fork in the road where you have to decide whether you want to keep going and make yourself worse to where you end up where you can't do what you want to do, or do you just say, fuck them, I'm going to go this path and I'm going to go get myself better, heal myself, heal my body, heal my mind, and then come back and be bigger, better, stronger than before, and kind of basically just rub it in their faces. Hey, fuck you. You said I couldn't do this. I'm doing it anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I mean, it's incredibly punny given how many different roles you've had as a service person. But I mean, we've talked about on this podcast just how adaptable and how hard to kill the human body actually is. So where there's a will, there's a way. And I think the will side of things probably makes people file into kind of like 3 columns. And I'm very happy that you are so strong-willed as you are. But I think people can be, like you mentioned, overzealous with their will and be foolhardy and then just tank themselves and not realize it. Or someone who is weaker-willed might look at neither of those options and be like, well, I can't move forward and I'm probably just shot now, so we're just going to shut it down, which is also unfortunate because both Ronnie and I deal with that at length with our clients, where they're just like, oh, well, like this is just as good as it's ever going to get. And it's just like, no, like you have to find an extra gear. But to your point too, not do it in a foolish thing so they burn too bright and smoke themselves early.
Correct.
Yeah, so I think like coming from you, it has much more weight because you've lived it and navigated it. But I think I would argue that it is the more masculine, mature, future-sighted adult thing to do, to take the little step back and go and down the path that you explained of, let me deal with this. You might call me a bitch and whatever, but it's fine. You can say your names and change your titles. It's all good. I'm comfortable and confident enough in myself to know where I need to, reorganize so that I can come back stronger. And that's beautifully put. So,
and one of the things I've learned, in all my years of living and my background is it takes more of a strong-willed person to say, I'm going to take a step back. Like I've pushed it to my exact limit. I don't want to push it beyond that limit because I know the potential hazards of going beyond that limit. So just going to take a step back and be a strong-willed person and be able to accept the fact that I need to take a step back so I can get back on the progress I once was, but do it in the full capabilities with a full, healthy body and mind.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah. So for your like current day-to-day stuff, if we're sort of, going to more present world, how is your training sort of shifted from some of your other roles and demands to what you're doing currently, and how do you navigate and see a place with it now, and how do you even guide people that work for you and sort of lead them down a similar mindset that you're embodying currently?
Right now I'm pushing more towards the strength and mobility and the agility side. When you're out there, you're wearing the gear, you're moving, you're going from place to place, you're in and out of a vehicle, or you're up and down stairs, you're in some type of urban environment. The one thing that you want to be able to do is be mobile. I'm pushing myself more in the realm of, hey, I don't need to go out there and squat 800 pounds. I don't need to go out there and bench press 400 pounds. Would I love to? Absolutely. However, I know my limits. I know the injuries and the surgeries that I've had to where I can push those limits. But now it's more so I want to have the endurance and the strength that I need to be able to perform my duties. And I put that with a lot of my people. Like currently now, Daniel and I have talked about this before. I had a really bad lower back injury. I had a pinched nerve that affected my right side, my left sciatica, and my primary care has said, hey, I need you to stop doing X, Y, Z until you get this healed. We're going to start focusing on a lot more core movements and stretching, which a lot of people neglect, including myself. I am guilty of that, neglecting the stretching, the core movements, the core strengthening. So now I've had to make an example of myself and say, hey, I don't need to get out there and do all of these great things. I truly admire the men that can get out there and the women that can get out there and lift the amount of weight that they can lift and that they can push and pull. That's great. But when it comes time, when shit hits the fan, how mobile and how functional are you as a human being?
Yeah, you're birthing another question in my head. Sorry for all the random firing off if we go off script here. I tend to have little bit more lean towards like cardio emphasis. And I'm really curious about how much that has been dived into through different academies you've been through, like what you go through pre, firehouse and the police force and all of that. Naturally, there's just like a cardio demand because,
yes,
hey, you're going to go walk 10 miles at this pace. Do not fucking stop. There's your cardio.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the like training side, do you feel like that's something that people like appreciate and know how to integrate? Or is it just something that is like there, but not as big of a like carved out structured thing like it is with your lifts or mobility work or things like that?
Yeah, I know a lot of military guys, they reach cardio burnout. You're Monday morning, you're running a 5-mile detox run because everybody was out partying the whole weekend. You're every other day, you're running 2 miles first thing in the morning for PT. You got a PT test. It's a 2-mile run. Including myself, when you get out of the military, you're like, oh, thank God, I'll never have to fucking run another 5-miler again. Right. So it reaches that cardio burnout. Now, cardio can come in many different shapes or forms, whether it's stairs, treadmill, Jacob's ladder, so many different things, to even just include walking. You get out there, you get your steps in, you're getting the cardio in. At least you're not winded when you tie your shoes or you walk up 3 sets of steps.
Right.
So I think it's something that not a lot of people have carved out to where they get in, they get their lifts, and then they're done. They neglect the 15 minutes of walking on the treadmill. You can walk 15 minutes and listen to a podcast or an audio book, and before you know it, the 15 minutes has now turned into 20 or 25 because you've just completely lost track of time. And that's a mindset thing. I've had to learn to not clock watch. I put something on to listen to and I walk, whether it's uphill at a moderate pace, whether it's level at a moderate pace, but I'm still getting it in. I'm still getting my heart rate up, and I get out there and run and jog as much as I want to, or as much as I need to. So by doing that, you're still incorporating some cardio, but I see a lot of people, and I'm guilty of it myself because I'm capable of calling out myself. You get in there, you get your lift in, then you're hungry. You're like, go home. I've got this shit done. Check the box. Time to get out of here.
Yeah, no, that's legit.
Another spawn question, and this one's probably a little bit more of a sensitive subject considering some of the dialogue around fitness standards and military and service people. Do you yourself, being that you are a business owner in the security game, do you exact a fitness standard with the people that you hire?
I have not. We did create basically a physical ability, and it kind of mimics a basic entry level academy agility test. With a dummy drag. You want to see at least bench press your body weight for 1 to 3 reps. Can you pick up an 80-pound weight? Can you squat that 80-pound weight? Can you drag your body weight? Things of that nature. And that's something that going into 2026 that we're going to start incorporating, because now moving into the government contract side, I want to make sure that I'm supplying the right people for these contracts that have the fitness standards that if shit does hit the fan, I don't have somebody who just took 15 steps and now they're huffing and puffing for air. It's not only that, it's also more of a professional look. You've got people out there, men or women, no matter who you employ, that they look the part, they look physically fit, because in my eyes, nothing is worse than seeing a overweight first responder. Because these people are designed in their job title, they are a first responder. They are designed to be there when shit does hit the fan. They are designed to save a life or multiple lives, while also keeping in mind that they also have a team to protect as well. But public always comes first. So if you cannot do that because you are out of shape, you don't fit in your uniform looks sloppy, your gut's hanging over, nothing fits well, then what does that say about the agency or the department or the company that's hiring you, that they have very lax standards? I've looked into the physical agility. I have my director of operations look it over and say, hey, as a private contract company, is this something we can implement? Because I want to do everything legally, ethically, and morally. I don't want to be coming back and saying, oh, well, he didn't hire me because I was out of shape. I want to make sure that I have all of my T's crossed, my I's dotted to say, okay, this is why we have a standard. I want to meet that standard. And if that standard can't be met, then you cannot work for my company. I cannot have you in the general public representing me and my company as an individual.
For sure. No, I think that's more than fair. And furthermore, still, yes, they're representing you, but I also need to know as a person enlisting you that you can actually protect or show up when it's necessary and have no exposures or no deficits in your skill set physically or otherwise. I think that's more than fair.
And, we live in a time now where everybody's got a smartphone in their pocket. Everybody's tied to social media. And you see it all over social media. You see the photos of the out of shape first responders, the out of shape private contractors. And, it's a mockery to the public where the comments are open to anyone. It's the First Amendment, have the freedom of speech. So to me personally, as a business owner, I would take offense to that to say, oh my God, I've got one of my contractors out here on a public forum being made fun of, and that's a direct representation of me, because you see the comments, they're like, oh, the only thing he's saving is room for dinner, that nature. And it's like, that's not the image I want to perceive. Like, I want the public to know when my team shows up that they're in good hands and that they know that these are the contractors that are going to get shit done. And these are the contractors that I know without a doubt can handle the job and the capabilities of it.
Yeah, I think this is a really perfect segue, because I'm glad you said that, because I was thinking it, but I didn't know if it would come across too fucked up to share. But the norm of like passing your tests and then just being like, all right, now I'm good and I can just do my job and not have to worry about maintaining those same physical standards, I think it's a failure on a lot of different parts, but it really is a bigger failure to like the whole of the American way of viewing health. Because the other side of this, I'm thinking about the guy who became super overweight after he has been, on the force for 12 years. Anybody in the world could outrun him. You know the person I'm talking about.
Ooh.
The other side of it is that how many, bodies has that person come across? How many friends that are like family, coworkers have they lost? What kind of traumatic experiences and long shifts and hard work have they been through that it's like, I don't have the fucking brain space to stay and navigate my marriage and take the kids to school and, you name the other things that happen in our life. Like,
yep.
The whole system and approach that we have in terms of like our health and wellness really gets very murky in that space. And the parallel between that and the mental health side is where it gets a little even more murky, right? Because you have the people that say, well, I'm just going to go lift my traumas away. No, you're fucking not, but good luck. And then on the flip side, it's like, I don't even have the energy and capacity to do that. I'm just making it by getting through my job, like cut me some slack. And so, leading into our next question, like how have you gone through that journey of recognizing that like the gym and a lift is not the same thing as any form of counseling? Well, whether it's, traditional talk therapy or other types of, therapeutic avenues, like how do you express that to somebody from your side where you've lived it and navigated that?
Yeah. So kind of going back to what you said just a second ago about, You see the guy who's been on the department for so long, and when he first got on, he could outrun anybody. This guy had the lungs of a gazelle. And then 15, 20 years in, you see a photo of before and now, and it's such a huge change. Let's take First 48, for example, the documentary. You see the teams, you see the detectives that are going out and they're working these cases, and then they kind of every once in a while slip in a little bio about when they started the department. They're nicely fitted in their uniforms. They look slim, they look healthy. And then the amount of stress that job puts on them, the amount of hours and the tension that it puts on them. You see him now, the dude's overweight. His face is so red because his blood pressure is just skyrocketing. They're drinking coffee nonstop. They're eating on the go, and they're essentially just breaking their bodies down time after time again. And that's a lot of that has to do with trauma. A lot of that has to do with stress. I was reading earlier because I'm big into mental health. I've become a huge advocate for it because I myself have been in it for almost 3 years. I was reading earlier that constant trauma and stress in your brain signals your body to constantly produce inflammation. So your body is living in a state of fight or flight, and your body is constantly producing that cortisol that tells your body, oh, well, we're going to be just inevitably inflamed. This is existential inflammation that we're just going to live with. That comes in the form of, joint pain, shoulders, knees, back, that comes muscle tension. Your muscles stay so tight and so tense because of that trauma, because there is no outlet or release for it. And you get the stigma of, well, if a man goes to therapy, then he's just fucking weak. Stop being a pussy, just bottle it all in, compartmentalize, which a lot of people are good at doing. I've done compartmentalization for years, but just like any box, it's going to get full. You're going to be able to close that box eventually, but you're going to have to wrap it with duct tape, and then you have no more room. So instead of compartmentalizing that and putting all of that stress and strain on your body, you need to start unpacking that box in healthy ways. Just like Daniel and I talked was, you really do. You can't just go to the gym and lift your trauma and your stress away. That is just a temporary Band-Aid. When you walk into the gym, you're leaving that box of trauma at the door. And then when you walk out from that workout, you feel good temporarily. You have those endorphins going, but you're going to pick that box up and you're going to go right back home with it. So nothing changes. You get into the gym, you put your headphones on, you play whatever music you're listening to, you get that workout in, you forget the world exists for an hour to 2 hours. And then as soon as you're done, the world comes right back to your doorstep saying, hey, don't forget I'm still here. By getting into mental health, whether it's talk therapy, I've been in talk therapy for a while. I have a phenomenal therapist. She listens to me. She provides me feedback. She provides me with homework and skill sets that I use to address traumas and stress, which is very important. Some people feel like they're just stuck with one therapist. No one is ever stuck with one therapist. If your therapist is not working with you and you don't feel like it's a right fit, it's just like buying a pair of jeans. You're not going to buy them and keep them because they don't fit you well. Something that's going to fit you well. You want something that's going to complement who you are as a person, and finding the right therapist is the best way to go about that. And then there's so many other different methods for mental health and trauma. I recently got into lens therapy, which is low energy neurofeedback system. That has been a tremendous help, and I'm only in my 3rd session.
Nice. Hell yeah. That's awesome.
So I don't actually, no, sorry, cut you off, Ronnie, but like, what does that entail? Because that is new to me.
So lens therapy is a method of reading the body and the brain's response and signals from the central nervous system that is the damage is being caused by stress or trauma, traumatic brain injury. So with lens therapy, what they do is they work on certain parts of the brain, whether it's the memory portion, your verbal and emotional speech, your visual aspects of your brain. There's a map that they give you that so many different parts of your brain work on. And what they do is they hook electrodes to it and they send the signal to read how active that part of the brain truly is. And then they give it a low energy electrical pulse, which you can't feel, you can't hear, but it kind of just wakes that portion of the brain up. It's almost like a little nudge to say hey, we're not operating at full capacity. Let's go ahead and kind of wake up. Let's get out of this dormant phase and let's start working again to where working at full capacity. And you'll notice changes in your mood. You'll notice changes in your ability to process and handle stress better. You'll notice changes in your sleep, which is also vital for recovery. You'll also notice changes in your memory and how you as a person actually respond to other people. Some people that have a lot of stress and trauma built up, a lot of the people are very tense and angry. They respond hostile or kind of standoffish. It helps that part of the brain process exactly what's going on, and it does it in a healthy way to where after about 4 or 5 sessions, you start noticing a change in yourself to where you're like, wow, I didn't forget XYZ today. Or, hey, I actually remember this. But a lot of that is suppression due to trauma and stress because we compartmentalize it, we forget about it, we lock it away. So lens therapy is a way of getting the brain and the body back active. My first session, my therapist decided to do what she called body lens. The whole right side of my neck was tense. I carried my tension and my stress in my shoulders. It was tense for months. I mean, just pain and stiffness. She hooked it up. She got the signal. She said it went off the charts, that I had a lot of pain and tension there. She sent the signals back to that central nervous system saying, hey, let's relax a little bit. By the very next day, within 24 hours, I had zero tension in the right side of my neck. Now we're working on the brain lens therapy, which has been changing tremendously. Not to say that it's not going to come with some side effects like maybe an acute headache or, kind of a small change in mood, but you notice healthier patterns for yourself that you're able to actually handle stress and be able to cope with that stress or use the tools that you have for that stress to be able to process it instead of compartmentalizing and then be able to feel that out and then carry on about your day and say, hey, this is not a big deal.
Yeah. Fuck yeah. That's an awesome resource to have. I'm glad that you got connected with somebody providing that. I think it's a lot of people, like you said, either they have too much of a stigma around therapy or they've tried it 1 or 2 times and they didn't really jive with their therapist. And it was like, this shit sucks. I'm actually worse. Like, all we did was bring up old bags, and now I'm thinking about XYZ thing, and I have no skill to cope with it.
Yeah.
There was no other tool that helped to normalize and down-regulate those other things like you're talking about. And so I'm really glad that you're, shedding light and sharing that experience. So thank you for doing that.
The biggest thing in getting into therapy is you have to, as the individual, you have to have willpower to do so. It's not dipping your toe into the pond. It's like, hey, we're going to jump into this. And where a lot of people fail when they do go to therapy and 1 or 2 sessions are like, this isn't for me. The biggest problem is they're not being completely open, honest, and vulnerable with their therapist because they make shame or embarrassment they have this, well, I'm this masculine macho guy. Nothing's supposed to faze me. But everyone has their vulnerabilities, and you have to learn how to show those vulnerabilities, because you can only take so much. You can only pack in so much before that box breaks. And when that box breaks, that's when people, especially first responders and military, find themselves in one of the deepest, darkest times in their life. And I've been there. That box finally broke, and it was basically hell to crawl back out of. But by stepping into that and saying, okay, I'm going to go to therapy, and I'm going to completely talk about every single one of my traumas, and I'm going to do it with the best trained personnel that I can find.
Yeah. Damn. That takes some fucking balls.
It does.
Yeah.
But you feel so much better after.
Right.
Sure. Yeah. And I think that's the thing too. And that's the human condition of it all is even if you have apprehension or maybe you're avoidant with therapy, it's so much harder on our imagination to worry about things that we've not done yet. And then it feels maybe a tenth as hard as we've been up to our head when we actually execute. But for a lot of people, that's enough to keep you stuck in your tracks. And for most men, again, too, women too, but for most men, shedding that worry and that weight, and like you said, being open and getting rid of that hopeless feeling and just, succumbing to the process is what's going to help you the most overall, rather than just imagining what could go wrong and never making the move.
Yeah. As men, you're supposed to be the provider, the protector, and you can't do that if you're not functioning at full capacity, if you're stuck in a hole. And, it's kind of just pushed off to the side. Men's mental health is kind of just pushed off to the side because it hasn't become a big deal, but it's slowly, the wheels are starting to turn. They're starting to gain traction, where they're starting to see that men are failing because they're stuck inside of their own mind and their own body. We've all been there, and it is okay to be there. It's just you have to put in the actual willpower. You have to grab your balls, man up, and do what you need to do to climb out of that hole and to get back to where you want to be, to where you're feeling more of yourself. You feel that masculine side of you. You feel that protector side and that provider side. And, you're not just kind of cower.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can personally relate for kind of going through, granted, thankfully, I'm incredibly thankful that I've never had to go through traumas of a first responder or a service person. And I appreciate everyone who has, but in my own ways and navigating stuff and having the box get too filled and not being able to sort your way through it. As a man, I mean, we're basically expected to perform and have sharp instincts right away, never question anything. But when that starts to mount up and that clutter starts going through the roof, like you don't have instincts anymore. Like you don't know what's happening. You understand what's right ahead of you, but you are just filled with doubt, or you imagine 5 different outcomes of how you might approach it. Like you no longer have reflex or instinct because you're just worrying about sorting through the bullshit of your mind and how it may or may not benefit you, reflect you, keep you safe, and you lose your identity and your ability to reason the most simplest of tasks. So I think it's worthy for anyone to explore that and really start pulling back the layers, because when you have a clearer mind and ability to reason and have good instincts, it's like a night and day difference, which I'm sure the 3 of us can, relate to.
Yep.
Brandon, have you either personally or known other service folks who have gone through any type of ketamine therapies or like psilocybin based or LSD based like psychoactive therapies for PTSDs and complex PTSDs? How do you feel about those? Have you seen good things come from?
Personally, I love it. A friend of mine that was in 5th group, he just come back. He went in September to Mexico for a ayahuasca treatment. And the difference is night and day. He he is soaring with what he does. And he actually works in the realm of providing certain types of benefits for first responders. He works very close with agencies and he loves what he does. And this, I mean, he and I have both been through it, whether it's on the military side or whether it's in our personal lives, which is kind of how we became friends. But he told me about him going to do it. And I almost didn't recognize him as a person when he came back. He and I had a conversation. He kind of told me about the things he went through, how he felt after, he did it the proper ways. And I believe that if a veteran or first responder does take the LSD or the psilocybin or the ketamine routes, that they do it responsibly, do it under the care and control of someone who is a professional. You don't want to just go out there and, dose yourself and think, oh, I can do this. And
a little cowboy chemistry, never hurt anybody.
A little bit of homemade chemistry and, hey, we're just going to test this out because you're going to make a bad situation even worse because you're not in control of your mind. And that can lead to a very bad trip, which can lead to a very bad traumatic episode. By hearing and listening to people that have done it and knowing somebody personally that has done it. And other podcasts where they talk about going down, doing the same thing, the ayahuasca, they're doing the ibogaine treatments and stuff like that. And how it has helped them completely do a 180 on their life. It's gotten rid of the addiction or dependency to certain substances. Where they were dependent on alcohol, they had the alcohol addiction, or they were dependent on tobacco and nicotine and stuff like that, to where they completely reverse that process and they became a healthier version of themselves.
Yeah, it's a pretty profound neural reset. I don't think there's any other things that at least I've come across in studies or people's accounts that really has that same impact, because it gets you so far outside of yourself that things can finally, you're like born again. Like you are having experiences that are impossible to replicate and impossible to muster up. You can't just, maybe you can breathe your way into some of it. There's definitely, hallucinogenic effects from breath work, but it's just not the same. Like having that chemical reaction really is beautiful. But yeah, there's a lot of good tools that I think are finally getting a little bit more light and information around and normalized without it being further stigmatized or like, holy shit, you ate a bag of shrooms and you know what I mean? Like it's more celebrated now, which I think is really, really beautiful and important because it's
I really do, because there are veteran organizations that are actually providing this care free of charge. It's a non-organization. They're getting grants for these kind of things. The lens therapy I have is off of a grant. I get 12 free sessions.
Awesome.
It's great to have that because, the VA is not going to offer these things. The problem with the VA, and they've done this to me, is, okay, well, you're having these problems. We're going to throw these pharmaceuticals at it. And those pharmaceuticals do nothing but change the chemistry in your brain to where you just basically go numb. You're not attacking the problems. We're just putting a chemical Band-Aid over these feelings, but we're not sorting these feelings out in a healthy manner. So by veteran organizations going through and doing these types of things for veterans and helping them cope with trauma and essentially using these methods to open every single door in your brain, every single compartment to where you've stashed every ounce of trauma, and process through that and kind of have like an out of body, out of mind experience to be able to go through and completely change yourself is a phenomenal thing. And I really wish so many more organizations would get behind that, even for first responders, because you don't just have trauma overseas. You have so much more trauma here that nobody ever talks about.
Right. Yeah. Hell yeah.
So kind of distilling everything that we've talked about down. So in your experience, the wisdom you've gained from this. So for servicemen and women, first responders, or just people in high stress situations, I mean, granted, this can also apply to general pop, but this is a more specialized circumstance. What would you suggest a good lifestyle and protocol would be to help manage the mental and emotional side, kind of the physical, the mental, the therapeutic side? What's like a baseline protocol that you found keeps your gears turning the right way?
One is going to be a proper balance in work and personal life. You've got to have a good balance, personal and work life. You can't bring work home. You can't bring home to work. Those two never intermingle. You got to be able to separate those two and be able to manage those two properly. So having that balance is key. Also, the things that you're putting into your body, your diet, what kind of foods are you eating? How are you eating? How often are you eating? I get it. Stress and high demanding jobs is going to have a tendency to either make you eat poorly or make you not eat at all. So you're not fueling your body. You're not fueling your brain. Hydration. You got to give your body water. Your body runs off water. It needs water. So everything that you're putting into your body can also play a part in, throwing that balance off. And then also getting into mental health, not being scared of the stigma of, he's just weak, he needs therapy. I look at it this way, if somebody's telling me that I'm weak and I need therapy, and I can look at that person and tell that they're riddled with trauma, that tells me that they're just as scared as I am to take that leap into therapy, deep dive into their mental health, because they're scared of what they may find. Everybody has a past. Everybody has skeletons in the closet. Well, now it's time to clean that out so we can actually be a healthier version of ourselves. We can be the friend, the brother, the father, the husband, whatever we need to be, to where we don't become such a burden being around the people that love us the most. So-and-so's coming to the birthday party and they're like, oh, fuck this guy. You want to be able to have all of those things. And that's part of my protocol is I separate work and business and personal. I have a good meal prep plan. I have a good supplement intake, and I have hydration. When we travel, my business partners are always making fun of me because they're like, oh my God, how many times do you have to pee on a road trip? Well, I'm sorry. Drink water.
As many as it takes, dude, because I'm running well.
If I got to stop every 2 fucking hours, so be it. I'll catch up.
Yep. You're going to have a happier prostate because of it. So.
Oh, absolutely.
For sure. Brandon, I'm going to kind of crowbar something in real quick because we generally have a signature question that we'll ask everybody. However, even before that, you said you want to separate business and personal, and we've gone through a bunch of heavy shit, a lot of harder won subjects and battles internally and emotionally. Tell us some good personal shit outside of work. What's good in your world?
Yeah.
I mean, man, I've got an 11-year-old son. He's growing. He's changing. It's hard to believe that he is 11 already. I love hearing the things that he's getting into. He's trying so many different things. The times when I do have him, I'm able to talk about things with him and explain it to him, and as best as an 11-year-old can understand. But I enjoy those like father-son bonding moments where I'm still learning about his life. I'm still learning things that he's interested in. Staying in contact with him and letting him know, hey, I'm always going to be here. You can always talk to me. So building that close relationship, and then of course. With family, my mom and my sister, they also live in North Carolina. So my sister's in college, seeing her navigate the ways of life, seeing how she's turned into, she's always going to be my baby sister, but how she's gone from being a baby to being a grown woman who's almost graduated with college, and, seeing where her life is going, because she is a very intelligent young lady. Obviously I didn't get that one. I'm like, hey, I got the street smarts kid. Like, you absolutely book smarts, but she's going in a way of life that I'm proud of her. So those personal things to me, it's just me and my dog out here in Nashville. He's my best friend. I've had him since 2018. That dog and I are bonded. He's getting older, but he still acts very much like a puppy, and he has kept me grounded for many, many years. Just having all of these accomplishments and having all of these things on the personal side, just kind of, it gives me that sense of like, I think I've done pretty well. I've had my barricades, I've had my roadblocks along the way of life, but here I am. I'm owning a business. I have a good connection with my family. I have a good connection with my son. He's retired, but I still have him. So I have a lot to be grateful for, where I see other people that aren't as fortunate, and being able, as a friend, as a boss, coworker, to be able to shift my mindset into noticing when people are struggling and trying to give them that push to be like, hey man, I'm going to be vulnerable with you here for a second. Like, this is who I am. This is the raw version of me. Let me get on the right path. So that also gives me like a personal sense of achievement.
Definitely.
That's awesome.
Fuck yeah. That's an awesome list. Yeah, that's good stuff.
One more little hijack, because again, I like the idea of lightening this up a little bit toward the end, because you're a badass. You're a fucking clinical operator. You balance so many things on so many levels. Well, people probably don't realize about you because you're in uniform so often, but you're a sneakerhead and a big streetwear guy.
Hey, okay.
I am. The GOAT app almost takes all of my money sometimes.
There you go.
I get that. Yeah.
Jordans and the Air Force Ones, the Vans. I like to keep it, I dress just casual, the streetwear. Like, I don't like to go out and somebody pinpoint and say, oh, that's veteran, that's law enforcement, that's a business owner. It's like most of the Metro guys that see me and know me, when they see me in regular clothes, they're somewhat baffled. They're like,
yeah, no, you stunt pretty hard, honestly, having seen it myself.
That's awesome.
No, it's sick. Ronnie, hit him with it.
All right. So we're painting a lovely day. You are totally unencumbered by all your woes and worries. You have a beautiful morning anywhere in the world. Where are you, and how are you taking your coffee?
If I could have a beautiful morning, it would most definitely be in the mountains of Norway, and it's black coffee with honey.
Hell yeah. My man knows.
That's right. Straight to it. Yeah. There was no need to think about it. It's just instantly out of the pocket.
That's perfect. Well, again, it's a testament that his brain is sorted. He's got his ducks in a row.
That's right. That box is fucking organized.
Yeah. Marie Kondo got up in that bitch.
That's right. Hell yeah, dude.
Well, Brandon, this has been I knew it was going to be a treat, but even more so than I could have imagined. So we really appreciate all of your insight, your vulnerability, all of the wisdom and your experience. So we cannot thank you enough for being here, and hope you just have a great rest of your weekend.
I appreciate it, gentlemen. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Right on.
Ours indeed, my friend. Have a great one.
All right. You
Until next time.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Later.